With the Thunderdome era coming to an end, we still have a lot to discuss this week with the return of Rey and Dominic Mysterio, Edge taking down both Jimmy and Jay viciously, Bayley's devastating injury, and so much more. Let's get everything started right now.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your number one source for the latest in WWE news and straightforward analysis. Are you ready to get this thing going?
Give me a hell yeah! I said give me a hell yeah!
Then let's get this show started right now.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Week in Review. Yes, it's coming a day early. Normally I do record this on a Sunday, but prior commitments have me doing this on a Saturday. I don't think I'll get many complaints about that, but it is coming to a bit early, and boy, have we've got a lot to discuss this week with the return of fans really at the forefront. And I've been counting this down at the start of every show that we only have a month left, or 2 months left, I think I started, and then a month left, and then we have a week left, and then we have less than a week. We have less than a week. We have 6 days until fans are back, and I cannot be more excited than I am for fans to come back. And it's going to be a moment that you realize, hey, how have we done this? How have we done no fans since March of 2020? How in the hell have we done that? And we're going to look back years from now, barring another pandemic, God forbid, that we're going to look back and say, how did we do this? We're going to remember, oh my God, remember when there were no fans? Remember that WrestleMania when there were no fans and how awkward that was? It's going to happen because we lived history, and now we get to live it again by going back to something that you just took for granted on a weekly basis of fans being there. And that's the thing, right? It's consistently there, not a one-off. This is hopefully indefinite, infinity, that we're going to have fans in an arena, of course, barring some unforeseen circumstance. And we've gotten snowed out before. Remember the snowed-in Raw before WrestleMania 31? I remember that. But barring those kinds of things, hopefully we never have to deal with this again. So, guys, 6 days. Oh, hell yeah. And I'm sure that I can speak for almost all of us, if not all of us, and say, thank God, right? So, all right. Well, we're going to dive into the whole week in review in just a moment. I would like to invite you to head on over to Patreon if you want an ad-free experience, and over to Apple Podcasts and hit that subscribe button. As a subscriber on Apple Podcasts, you get every show we do ad-free. So head on over there, and I have started to add the What If show to the free feed. And the reason I've done that is simply demand. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on my show with Anthony DeMarco, where we talk about a topic every week and just dive into what if this didn't happen? What if this did happen? This past week, we dove into what if Randy Orton's babyface turn in 2004 was successful? What would that have meant for his career, Batista, Evolution, and so on? So we are bringing it to the free feed at your request, at the fans and listeners' request. Now, what does that mean for those who are in the higher tiers, that went to the higher tiers in Patreon? We've got some special stuff coming for you, video, and we've got the ability to come on the show once a month as a guest. So I'll be adding that to Patreon as kind of a make good on the benefits there. So that will be being added in just the next couple of days. So don't feel like those of you who are on Patreon, who are on the higher tiers, are being disenfranchised, because we're going to make that up to you and not just take away benefits and not add something great. So that's our plan. That's what we're going to be doing. And we are moving the What If show to the free feed. Wrestling Nostalgia is still remaining on Patreon. That will remain on Patreon, the Wrestling Nostalgia show, and exclusive to also Apple's podcast subscribers. So What If is moving. I think that you guys will enjoy it. And starting this week, you notice that it popped up in your feed. So just check it out, and I'm sure that you will enjoy it. So, all right, let's get into what I saw last, and that is Roman Reigns, Edge, and the Usos. Now, let me say, I have to say I'm fairly surprised that Jimmy Uso was there. I made the call and prediction that they would at least have to keep him off TV, suspended for an X amount of weeks, behind the scenes, or just saying that was due to Edge's actions last week. He's injured and going to be out, whatever. Nope, nothing. Not even a wink and a nod to it. It just didn't exist. It didn't happen. And I feel very conflicted about this, first of all. I'm sure you have your own opinions about it. I think we can all agree that Jimmy Uso, the person, the human being, does need some kind of intervention, does need some kind of help, therapy, whatever. He does need that. There's no doubt. And that is first and foremost the person, the human being. Secondly, when you look at the storyline, it is, I think, critical to keep him going. I think it's really important to have Jimmy there. And had Jimmy not returned when he did, I don't think that we would be talking about Jimmy Uso still being here. I really don't. But he has become a integral component of this storyline. Same with Jay, who returned this week, and we'll get into that. But the storyline does need Jimmy. Would it have been fatally flawed without him? Would have been wounded pretty bad. And so there's that. And then there's the third piece of WWE PR. And I'm shocked that they didn't kind of cave to the pressure. Now, have I seen mounting social media pressure or news outlets calling for the head of Jimmy Uso, calling for him to be fired, calling for him to at least be fined or suspended? No, I mean, it's just mostly been fan reaction and fan outrage or fans' opinions. I haven't seen a whole lot of outside pressure. So perhaps they did kind of squeak this one under the radar, and they were able to mitigate it and hope that if they just ignore it, it goes away in the minds of their stockholders, stakeholders, and just the general public. Because we'll move on to the next story, as we do today, right? I mean, we could have the most devastating story in the world happen, and then within a week, we've kind of forgotten about it and moved on to the next thing, because we have information overload today, don't we? Everything is trying to get our attention. There's a million things you can look at on your phone and dive into, and everything is just pulling at your attention. And there's always something bigger, badder, better that comes in the news cycle. So this one will cycle in, and it's about to cycle out. So I think that's the approach they're taking. Regardless of that, again, I think Jimmy Uso should have some type of intervention. I'm sure that if he was smart, he would, and maybe that's a requirement behind closed doors. I'm sure. So maybe he was even fined behind closed doors. Could have been. We don't know. So I just wanted to touch on that before we get into the storyline, and let's do that now. Let's get into a little bit less serious stuff, and that is Jimmy and Jay and Roman seem to be united. At least on the surface, you could argue, oh, this is just a kind of a sheep or a wolf in sheep's clothing, that this is just a setup for one of them to turn. I hope not. I don't want Jimmy or Jay to turn at this point. I want Roman to have those guys have his back. That makes Roman all the more formidable, all the more hated. And I don't think trying to turn Jimmy or Jay into some kind of mega babyface is going to work. I really don't. And I'm all for this to be the case, with them to, stay with Roman and stay with Roman as long as possible. I would like them to eventually just give themselves a damn name, something. His tribe. I know we're all about the bloodline. Other than a few of you out there have heard that hate the bloodline name. I love it, and it's fitting. And I think that they should just do it because there is some marketing to be made from that. And speaking of marketing, I'm sure you noticed Roman Reigns' T-shirt this week, the white one. And when is the last time we've seen Roman Reigns in a white anything? I gotta say, it's a good-looking shirt. He's a good-looking dude, but that's a good-looking shirt. I may actually pick that up for real. That is a really, really cool shirt. And I never, ever thought I would make any kind of purchase or take money out of my pocket for a Roman Reigns piece of merchandise. Ever. And I am heavily considering it. That is a really good, cool t-shirt. And again, seeing Roman Reigns in white is just weird. It's weird, but cool at the same time. So outside of that, guys, though, we had Edge, of course, to claim that he's going to call out Roman Reigns, and he did. And with about 11 minutes remaining in the show, I was thinking to myself, whoa, we've got 11 minutes for a call out. Typically that's like 5 minutes. So there's got to be something else going on here. And Edge, of course, does have to deal with the 3-on-1, but the Mysterios end up evening the odds here and nailing Jimmy and Jay with chairs a few times. Apparently the weakest chair shots ever, because they were somehow able to very quickly, after like 3 chair shots, just retaliate and turn the tables on Ray and Dominic. I'm like, you guys had the most advantageous situation with your opponent's back turned and you have a steel chair in your hand, and somehow they're still able to turn the tables. Think about that. I don't know, nitpicking, but it's I actually didn't mind seeing them back. I was really surprised. And as long as Dominic stays off the microphone, I can tolerate him. I don't need to see them in an embrace about to make out. I mean, it really did seem that way. So lovey-dovey about how great it was to be a father-son tag team, all that nonsense. Which is, I mean, it is a cool thing, but it's too heartwarming for me, even as a dad. It's the way WWE presented it was a little too mushy. So anyway, as long as Dominic stays off the mic, this could be a fun little quick program. And I don't think I would pretty much bet anything that next week in Houston, for the first ever, not first ever, but the first show back in front of fans since March of 2020, which is 16 months ago, I think we'll have a 6-man tag. One would think that it's going to be a 6-man tag with the Mysterios and Edge versus Roman and the Usos. Now, Roman hasn't had a match on SmackDown on free TV in, quite a while. He doesn't do it often at all. And he's a prize fighter, and he avoids confrontation when possible. I mean, I'm thinking the whole Christmas, I think it was Christmas Day, that he had a steel cage match for the Universal Championship with Kevin Owens. No explanation for that at all. I didn't understand it. But I think that in general, it has been quite a while since Roman Reigns has been on TV in a match that is not on pay-per-view, right? So that'll be interesting. If that match happens, it's waiting to happen. So there's that. And, with Edge going crazy at the end, doing what he does with the metal piece on the steel chair that he breaks off, and he uses it to just put it in the mouth of Jimmy and Jay, and Jimmy and Jay, and Jay and Jimmy, and just back and forth, and made them look like absolute fools. And Roman standing on the stage, and he was seething, but you notice he didn't raise a hand to help them. And they probably won't ever mention that, but that's the point of a heel, where somebody would take a bullet for you, but you don't take a bullet for them, which makes you, again, all the more hated. So that was the end of SmackDown as we saw. And outside of that with Edge, I think the most noteworthy thing that happened with Edge could have even been the Rollins interaction, which it felt really cool. I know that we have all been speculating, and it seems that we're correct, that the next program for Edge is going to be Seth Rollins. And with Seth Rollins now officially in the Money in the Bank contract, Money in the Bank briefcase ladder match, one does wonder where this will lead Edge and Roman Reigns, and Edge and Rollins. We see the Edge and Rollins program happening at SummerSlam a mile away. But I do wonder if it's going to be where Edge is screwed out of the Universal Championship by Rollins. And if the Money in the Bank ladder match at the end of the night is Rollins at the top of the ladder about to grab the briefcase and then Edge screws Rollins, then yeah, we're off to the races. But I don't know how it happens in reverse. So Edge, I don't think, would screw Rollins out of the Money in the Bank briefcase and then have Edge draw first blood on Rollins. I mean, the heel would typically be the one to strike first. So my feeling is that the Money in the Bank contract, the match itself, will be the final match of the show. And that's kind of weird for me because everything with Roman Reigns feels like it should go on last. But in the interest of also progressing the storylines, and you want the final image of the show to be the winner of the Money in the Bank briefcase holding over their head, then yeah, you want that match at the end. Now, that means where do the women go? You would think they'd open the show. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I don't think anyone can argue that right now the women's division is hotter than the men's. It's not. There was a time, and it was a long time. For a long time, I think it was better. Right now, the women's division is very uninteresting. And not everything is bad. That's not what I'm saying. But as a whole, when I'm looking at this as kind of in totality, I don't think that it's where it once was. And so my point is, I believe that they should open the show with the ladder match for the women. And that's what they do with the Hell in a Cell. Anytime there's two matches of the same stipulation, you spread them out as far as you can on the show. So I believe they'll open with the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, and they'll close with the men's Money in the Bank ladder match with Roman and Edge in the semi-main. So that's how I think it'll go in terms of sequence of events. And that would make sense after Edge is screwed by Rollins and then Edge returns the favor in the subsequent match. So I think that's how it will go. So, but that interaction with those two, really cool. Edge was punking out or reminding Rollins that you're still the same guy from 2014, huh? I didn't forget. And I hope that he's talking about the time that he was threatening to break Edge's neck. I didn't forget it. So I hope they don't forget it. It might have been right around that time. And I hope that they don't forget that, because that's going to be a fun thing to bring up in their run up to SummerSlam. So that was cool. And it felt like Rollins was in something finally that feels really important. I mean, it's been quite some time. I'd say a couple of years for Rollins. Since really remember AOP? When they joined Rollins and Rollins turned heel after the fans just basically demanded it and forced it. And he was the guy revealed in the van. And then he was with AOP, which was freaking awesome. And then that faded out quickly due to injury. And then he became the Messiah and floated around with Rey Mysterio for like 8 years. And, he had Kevin Owens in a WrestleMania match last year. He kind of never felt right. He was in between gimmicks. It was kind of, he was in purgatory, and he feels like he's starting to really come out of it. And so I'm really looking forward to Edge and Rollins, not only for Rollins and to continue his ascension back to main event relevancy, but also for Edge, who I think needs a bit of a shakeup too. Not that he's doing poorly. I mean, my God, I would argue he's the best promo on the show. But I'm talking about just feeling like he's doing something a little different with someone different. As of right now, Edge has really only messed with Randy Orton and Roman Reigns. And good programs. I think Edge and Randy Orton got screwed by the pandemic, which is really unfortunate. One of the best storylines of 2020 and best storylines of the last 10 years, but it got just completely derailed by the virus. Now we have Roman Reigns, and this match with Roman feels almost more important than the WrestleMania match, because there's no third wheel. I got to say, that's the other thing I wanted to bring up too, is this match with Roman feels more structured and easier to follow than did the lead up to WrestleMania this past year in the Triple Threat with Daniel Bryan. So it's cleaner, it's easier to understand, and I like this a little bit better. So not that I don't like Daniel Bryan, I just think it's easier to follow without a third wheel in there. So, but again, with Edge and Rollins, it just feels like they need one another right now. They came together on screen and I'm like, oh, cool, right? It's like, all right, here we go. You also notice they mentioned Brock again on the show. If they aren't trying to drop Easter eggs, I don't know what they're doing. Paul Heyman even changed his profile picture on like Instagram, I think it was, to a picture of him with his sniveling smile looking up at somebody you can't see in the picture, but you can make out by the shorts it's Brock Lesnar. So they are, I think, clearly bringing back Brock Lesnar. It's going to be awesome. I will be floored if Brock Lesnar's not on his way back, along with Becky Lynch. Yeah, certainly those are the top two names. The Rock, I think, if he was coming back for a match with Roman, you're probably looking at Survivor Series leading to a match at WrestleMania in Dallas. That's how I see that story with The Rock playing out, if it does. Okay, if. So we got a lot of great returns coming. Of course, John Cena is all but confirmed at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if he returns next week in Houston. I think that would be a great start. And honestly, this next show in Houston, it's going to feel like a pay-per-view. It actually may have more of a pay-per-view feel than the actual pay-per-view of Money in the Bank, because it's the first one. It's the build-up. It's the, can we just get back to freaking normal? And now we get to do that. So I think the energy from the crowd is going to be off the charts. It'll feel kind of like a Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. I think it's going to be that kind of feel with like a pay-per-view hybrid feel. It's on Fox. I think the Michael Cole and Pat McAfee are going to be wired, especially Pat McAfee, who's, I mean, he's off the deep end sometimes. I got to say, he's off the deep end. I'm up and down about Pat McAfee. I really am. I don't know how to feel yet. I know some of you love him. His energy certainly is, it kind of infuses the show. I have no problem with that. But sometimes he's a little bit overboard and cheesy. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be an electric atmosphere. And we have a live correspondent going to that show. So stay tuned for that. But I think you have John Cena likely return next. You know what? Not even, maybe next time. But when you think about it, if John Cena returns on next Friday, then that would kind of muddy the waters for Money in the Bank now that I'm thinking of it. Because if that happens, well, what's he doing there? You know, is he like, oh, well, I'm just here to say hi and I'll be back next week? Because if he's going to be facing Roman Reigns, right? If he's going to be facing Roman Reigns, you can't have two programs going on at once. They can't overlap. That almost never happens. So it has to start clean with the following Friday Night SmackDown, which would be what, the 23rd or something like that, whatever that next Friday is. So that's what I would actually think would happen. At the same time, there's also a great case to be made to make this show as big as it possibly can be and feel like it's a damn pay-per-view and have that electric vibe by having John Cena come back that night. But I don't know what he'd be doing there. Maybe come face-to-face with Roman, just make a kind of a passing, they're walking down the hallway and bump into each other or give a staring gate. I don't know. So there is that. There's a case to be made for both. But certainly there's going to be, I think, at least one big shocking return or some huge moment or something. There has to be. It has to be memorable. Same with Monday Night Raw, for that matter. With Monday Night Raw, the second show, but the first Monday Night Raw back, I think that also warrants a potential Brock Lesnar return, maybe more so than a John Cena one, because at that point you've already concluded Money in the Bank after Lashley hopefully just squashes, and I'm literally hoping for a squash of Kofi Kingston. Then you have Brock Lesnar's music hit, and they come face to face, and you get the holy chance. If that happens, it will happen. So I think Brock Lesnar returning there would be a really cool deal, leading us right into SummerSlam, like jump-starting SummerSlam immediately that night. So I think the case for Brock to return before John Cena is a little stronger. But nonetheless, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about, guys. And yes, Becky Lynch. It's not just these one-time or two-time big stars coming back. Becky Lynch, I think, is also on the horizon very, very soon. Maybe even at Money in the Bank. Hell, you could have John Cena, Roman Reigns, and or Becky Lynch return at the pay-per-view. You could. You really could, and maybe one of those three do. Strong case. You can't go wrong, really, whenever one of these three come back. You can't. It's almost like you would have to design it to be bad for one of these three to come back. You'd have to make a concerted, conscious effort to make it as bad as possible. And so with that not being the case, they really can't screw this up. Famous last words, right? So I know there's other potential returns out there and all that kind of stuff floating around, but we'll see what happens. Let's get back to this week in WWE, staying on track, as I'm already projecting forward and not staying on track. I don't even have a co-host tonight. I'm already off track. But that's my deal on Roman and Edge and the Usos and Rollins. So that said, let's talk a little bit, really take a left turn here and talk about Otis, because that's the next thing that came to my mind. I like this. I don't just like it. Actually, I love it. I love what they've done with Otis. They've taken him away from really sophomoric humor. I mean, look what they did with him at Money in the Bank last year. One of the most embarrassing and just, to me, cringeworthy matches I've ever seen, ever. And at the center of that was Otis, worrying about eating sandwiches and going to the cafeteria. And now this year, you have Otis in the Alpha Academy, a group that was not supposed to probably produce this big of a deal, or be this prominent, I should say. And you have Otis, and to his credit, Chad Gable, who I think needs to get a bit more of a spotlight too, and not just be kind of a hybrid manager for Otis. But you have a guy that has just transformed how he feels on camera, what he brings to the table, what emotions he elicits inside of you, at least for me. And I think he has become more relevant in a couple of weeks by shaving his beard and changing his attitude than he has in however long he was in Heavy Machinery, talking about Tucky and eating food and being just the butt of a joke and wearing shirts that are too small, and his belly's jiggling around, and doing the caterpillar, which is it's a blatant ripoff of the worm with Scotty 2 Hotty. All of that's gone. It's wiped clean by a clean shaven face and a new attitude. Amazing. Sometimes it's the simple things that make all the difference. And right now, Otis is on track to be a big time player in 2021. Now, he's a heel, and we have the draft coming up, so it doesn't mean he's going to stay on SmackDown. We have the draft coming up in a couple of months. And when that happens, he could go to Raw, or he could stay on SmackDown and just get new talent to work with. But with Roman just being such a brilliant heel, it's hard to take that top spot from him. You're just not gonna. I mean, it's not gonna happen. This is a once in a generation heel program we got going on, and I'm serious. I think we've got something really, really special with Roman Reigns right now. But with Otis, there is a spot for him, and I think it's a big spot. Do I think it's the spot, meaning top main event, potentially WWE or Universal Champion? Probably not in 2021, but I think as we move forward into 2022, if things continue to progress and they actually put some effort into this, yeah, I think it's possible. It's possible that he does get into that conversation. I mean, when you squash Angelo Dawkins, a guy that, yeah, he's a big dude, but not just his size, but how WWE has been presenting him over the last year however long they've been in WWE, year and a half, 2 years, where they've positioned Angelo Dawkins in the Street Profits that has sucked up many segments. We're tag team champions for how long? And he just squashes them. Boom. I mean, that's impactful. And it, quote, to use a overused phrase, it definitely sent a message to me. So we'll have to see what continues here. But I liked how he also spoke this week. Otis spoke. I believe his words are something to the effect of, I destroy people, or I'll knock anyone down, or some quick, easy sentence. And he didn't say it in a kind of blue-collar, entertaining way. He said it in just a normal speaking voice. Man, I got to attend the Alpha Academy. Can we sign up? Are courses available? Like, how do we do this? So, just that was a quick side note. Now, I want to get into the women's division on SmackDown 2. We'll get to a little bit of Monday Night Raw, but as I always preface this by saying, the weekend review is, I don't focus too heavily on Raw because we had a complete review, or I did a complete review on Tuesday for Monday Night Raw. So we'll get to Monday Night Raw soon. I just want to touch more on SmackDown because I haven't had a chance to talk to you about it. Michael Ritter put up a review earlier today, did an excellent job, so go check that out. It's in the feed. But what I want to do is just kind of dive into the women's division here. And it's headlined right now by Bayley being injured. That's, I think, the top news story anyway. And from what I understand, it's an ACL tear. That's serious. That's not a rehab thing. That's a surgery and recovery thing. That's a big deal. So 9 months is likely the scenario. Now, when you do the math, where does 9 months put you? Right at WrestleMania. So I'm sure her goal is to get her butt back prior to WrestleMania so she can get involved in the card. And that should be her focus. And it's going to be a tight timetable there, because if it's 9 months or more, she's probably going to miss WrestleMania, which is just, I would feel awful with her, especially given what she did this year at WrestleMania, being the butt of a joke with Hulk Hogan and I think she got knocked down the ramp by the Bellas or something bizarre. And yet she carried the women's division along with Sasha Banks during the pandemic era on SmackDown. I mean, they were a shining star on that show on a weekly basis. And so I really do hope that she does get better quickly, that she gets her surgery, heals, rehabs, and focuses on WrestleMania. Because I think right now it's realistic, but the surgery has to go right. Her therapy has to go right. She has to give it everything she has, and no setbacks, no further injuries, all that kind of stuff. A lot of variables. So all of that being said, it is possible. But right now, when you look at the timetable, it does look like WrestleMania is at least plausible for Bayley. So maybe even Rumble, right? I'm sure that right around January time, we're going to go, wait, Bayley's injured. That's right. She could be a surprise entrant, and that would be awesome. So I think Rumble, or the January Royal Rumble, is a little bit ambitious, but hey, it'll be fun to speculate around that time, won't it? So outside of that, we get Sonya Deville, who I gotta say needs to get out of this role. I know that we're supposed to have male, female representation, all about equality, blah, blah, blah. If that's the case, if let me put it this way, if Sonya Deville is there and put there by management to simply make sure that men and women have equal representation of authority on the show in a kind of a shoot way, not kayfabe, but making sure that in today's extremely sensitive society of equality and equity and all that kind of stuff, if that's the case, like, that's a bad call. Like, that's just bad. Why? Because you're taking a talent like Sonya Deville and putting her in a position where she can't showcase those skills. She belongs on the active roster, doing what she does best, in the ring and on the mic, cutting promos, not wearing a suit and being a WWE official, of which that was never explained, by the way. Now, if she's not there due to those kind of reasons, but she's there to still kind of dip her toe into the WWE environment again, and she's still getting over the whole incident with the fan and the stalking, all that kind of thing, then yeah, sure. Like, no problem. Or maybe she's still injured. She's rehabbing an injury we don't know about. Then that's fine. That's fine. If there's a legitimate reason beyond just the optics of making sure that men and women have equal representation on SmackDown, then fine. But if that's the weak case for it, you're wasting Sonya Deville's talents. But she comes out this week, and she's saying that she's going to appoint somebody to replace Bayley in the match with Bianca Belair at Money in the Bank. And she appoints Carmella. I have nothing against Carmella. Again, I think she's a good talent. I don't like the fact that we're supposed to focus on the superficial part of the women of the one thing we were told to not focus on anymore, or at least that shouldn't be the primary focus. And yet Carmella's embraced the very thing that give divas a chance. That movement in the women's revolution was fighting against. And yet they're embracing that very thing of beauty. Oh my God, so beautiful. And it's very centralized and sexualized. I've gone over this before, but nonetheless, Carmella, I think, is a good talent. She can talk pretty well. She can back it up. She's annoying, but I don't like the focus of, look at her body. It's just so primal and just, I don't know. It seems a little lowbrow, but she's named as the replacement. And then Liv Morgan, who has really grown a set, no pun intended, over the last several weeks since she was broken up by, of course, WWE firing Ruby Riott. That's another story. But Liv Morgan has been stepping up in a nice way and seemingly gaining confidence every week on the mic. You know, she seems like she's starting to kind of find her footing a little bit of actually like, oh, wow, this is what it's like to get weekly attention. Oh, okay, I better step up my game. And I like it. I don't love yet. I really like what they're doing with Liv. And I think the fans are going to be really behind her at Money in the Bank. Big time. Because she's a great underdog story. She's been there a long time. Fans have felt in general that she has been overlooked and underbooked and not given a true fair shot. And so you put all that together, and longevity and respect are there. The fans are going to be behind her, maybe more than anyone in that ladder match at Money in the Bank. So we have Liv come out and make the very good point about, hey, Sonya, what do you do? You just get to appoint people? Talk about picking favorites, or however she phrased it. And that's exactly right. And then Sonya Deville then says that, I wasn't finished. I'm going to put you in the Money in the Bank ladder match, which I guess she was okay with. And then she's saying that when I win, I'm going to cash in on you, Carmella. And she walks out. But the bigger point is, Liv is absolutely right. Why does Sonya Deville get to just appoint? And then, by the way, she actually appointed Liv Morgan to the Money in the Bank ladder match several weeks ago, and then backtracked after she started mouthing off to Carmella. And then she beat Carmella in a match that night. And she didn't get her way into the match even after beating Carmella. It was weird. But my point is, was Sonya Deville out there appointing people all the time? She appointed a replacement for Bayley. She appointed everyone on the women's side in the ladder match. It makes the women look a little weaker, the division look weaker as a whole than the men, because the men had to qualify. Now, the real reason, of course, that they had to do this is because they simply don't have the number of women on the show, enough women on the show, to do qualifying matches for. And therefore, if you don't have enough women, you have to just kind of appoint people. And that, again, both reasons are bad. Right? Like, the fact that you don't have enough women on the roster to do these qualifying matches is a problem in and of itself. But also storyline wise, the fact that you have people being appointed makes that division look weaker. I mean, it makes them look a little more entitled, like they didn't have to work for it. So both are bad, storyline and in real life. Both are it's bad. It's not good. That's what not bad means, by the way. So We have Liv Morgan standing up for herself. I really do like that, and I think fans will really be behind her. That's what my point was. So Bianca Belair comes out, though, and she just cuts a quick promo on both of them and says, I'll see you at Money in the Bank, and she smiles and twirls her hair and skips away. That's all she did. So I was like, okay, I mean, they've only got a week to promote this, but all right. So outside of that, guys, let's talk about Baron Corbin, who is growing his hairline out to an embarrassing length. And I feel you, man. I've got I don't have that exact hairline, but if I grew my hair out, it would be really bad. It looked like I have a bowl on my head. I mean, it'd be awful. So that's why I also shave my head. So I also feel you, Baron. But that said, Baron Corbin versus King Nakamura in a Money in the Bank qualifying match here was a good match. And we had Pat McAfee and Big E doing, I guess, like soaking their feet in kind of I don't know what the point of that was. And it's, I'll get to Big E in a second, but Baron Corbin loses. He fell short. Nakamura beats him. And it makes you wonder how far are they going to drop King Corbin? Or I'm sorry, Baron Corbin. I feel like Pat McAfee, he just said the same thing. How far are they going to drop Baron Corbin? Are they going to put him into a deep depression? And then what's the end game? And if Baron Corbin's supposed to be heel, why do I feel sympathy for him? I still feel sympathy for Baron Corbin because when a guy is that low and he's continuing to lose his livelihood and he lost his car and he has just lost a bunch of money and he has lost his crown and he lost the Money in the Bank qualifier. He's on a downward spiral. And it makes you wonder what the end game is. I don't know. Are they just going to continue to have him grow his hair out? That would be hilarious. I'm sure Baron Corbin is actually in real life like, dude, this sucks. I mean, because he's got to go through airports like this. I mean, he can always wear a hat and it's not hard. But he has to, in his personal life, also deal with this ridiculous like haircut. It feels like, remember when Kane did this when he first unmasked and he had the like half head shaved look? It was bizarre. It kind of feels like that, except Baron Corbin has naturally got that going on. So I feel for Baron Corbin because I don't know how far they're going to take this haircut. I just don't know. But I'm interested in this. I'm intrigued. I don't know where this is going to lead. And with a dejected Baron Corbin, you feel for the guy. I don't know anyone that's like, yeah, kick his ass. We don't feel that way. I don't anyway. So the other thing is Big E. I mean, how are we supposed to feel about him right now? He is, you talk about just kind of mitigating your progress. There is no better way to halt your progress as a single star than to remind people how wacky and zany you are and just taking what personality you had in the New Day and transplanting it over to SmackDown. That's what you're doing. It is bad for Big E right now. I don't know what in the hell they think they're going to accomplish by keeping him the same guy he was in the New Day. Now, I'm sure they'd say, well, when he gets into a program that we can sink our teeth into, he'll have a change. Well, how about you do it now? How about you start that metamorphosis, that process? Because it should be a long one. Start it now. That way, he's a fully developed character when you get him to that point that you want to bring him to that next level of Universal or WWE Championship. It shouldn't happen at the moment he gets into that program. You want him already ready to go, polished, primed, ready. And instead, if their thinking is keep him, with what, do with what works with what brought you to the dance, right? The old saying. No. They have become complacent in the Big E character. And in the meantime, you can do things to move it forward. And they have not. They have actually gone backwards. You've seen hints of it. You've seen glimmers of it during the build-up to Apollo Crews, I believe, at WrestleMania. He cut a halfway decent, actually angry promo. And he showed us he has more than just one emotion of joking all the time. That's good. And then right back to clapping, dancing, gyrating, and doing foot baths at ringside, as if we're supposed to be entertained by this. I mean, I don't understand it because I'm a Big E fan. I think he has a big future, pun intended, but they can't do this and expect fans to get behind him and believe that he could actually achieve what they know that he can. So I think I've buried that enough. But yeah, anyway, I don't know how we're supposed to also hate Corbin and why Shinsuke and Rick Boogs are not the heels here. Kicking a guy when he's down is not babyface, by the way. So also on SmackDown, we got Shotzi and Tegan Nox from NXT defeating Natalya and Tamina in their debut match, non-title. And it's just a rule in WWE. When you debut, no matter what, you win. Just all the time. So I had no problem with that. I was not super familiar with Shotzi and Tegan Nox. I know them. I've seen a little bit of their work. I was not prepared for them to come out in a tank, I have to say. That was a little I'll have to see how that grows on me. I was a little bit like, are they really coming out in a toy tank right now? You know, are they G.I. Joes, whatever? like what's happening? And so I'll let that go for now. I don't understand the relationship to what they are, what they're supposed to represent, but the match itself was good. It was fine. And it seems as if they are clearly setting up to a tag team championship match. So fine. New blood is good, right? That's what we've been calling for the women's division, and we need it. So looking forward to seeing what they can do. I think that covers SmackDown, guys. I think that pretty much covered SmackDown. I'll briefly touch on Monday Night Raw here. And the biggest thing on Monday Night Raw right now has to be Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, and Bobby Lashley. And this past week, of course, we did get Bobby Lashley losing in a tag team match with himself and MVP versus Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. And I said this at the time, and I don't take any of it back, that I really hope that Kofi Kingston gets squashed, literally squashed and disrespected at Money in the Bank. Now, what I mean by that is I want Kofi Kingston to not even look like he was ever a threat, that he was just a mosquito that Bobby Lashley had to squash. That's all. I want him to I don't want him to even look like he has a hope spot. I don't want him to look like he has any shot. Now, do I think they'll do that? No, I don't. You know why? Because there was a lot of backlash on WWE for them doing that to Kofi when Brock Lesnar faced him at the Fox debut on SmackDown. Or SmackDown debut on Fox, rather. You could also make an argument that actually would be a good thing to do, because then I think that you could draw that into Brock Lesnar returning and the parallels of Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar doing the same thing to Kofi. You could have a story there. But that said, I don't think they'll do it. I think you'll have some hope spots. I wouldn't do it, because if you're trying to prepare Bobby Lashley for Brock Lesnar, assumingly you are, then I would not have Kofi look like even a mild threat to the championship. We know what Kofi Kingston is at this point in his career. He is not a consistent main eventer. I know he never will be. The fans will never buy it that he's a main eventer. We understand and know what Kofi is at this point. Trying to redefine him just isn't worth all of that effort. So, to me, the sacrifice of Kofi Kingston at the hands of Bobby Lashley to get him ready for Brock Lesnar is absolutely worth the price. Absolutely. Bobby should dismantle Kofi. I wouldn't even allow Kofi to get a single offensive maneuver in if I was booking this. I wouldn't. That's how much I dislike the Kofi Kingston character. Same with Xavier Woods. I'm not an Xavier Woods fan as a character. In ring, yes, I think he's underutilized. On the microphone, yes, Xavier Woods has some talent, and I think eventually, if they put him in a singles career, certainly he could, I think, have a nice singles run. Do I think he'll become champion? No, that's of course not. I don't think he will. But he could have a nice United States title run, Intercontinental title run, getting some cool personal programs, but I don't believe Xavier Woods belongs in a championship picture. He does not. He's, again, I if I'm proven wrong, cool. But that's how it stands right now for me. And I've never wanted to see Kofi Kingston get his ass kicked more than I have this past week. I don't know if it's the Power Ranger outfits, and I'm a big Power Rangers fan, but that just tells me you don't take anything seriously. Everything to you is a joke. I don't need to go into the Kofi Kingston stuff. I've done it too many times, but that to me was the biggest point, I think, coming out of Monday Night Raw was the main event. And that's how I feel about that whole thing. And we can move on to actually, the real stuff where the parents get to talk now, right? Like the kids are going to get their say at Money in the Bank, but once the adults start talking, Kofi Kingston can go back to his room and play with his Megazords and, watch Power Rangers and whatever else he does. All right. The other couple of things that happened on Monday night that maybe I'll kind of glaze back over. Oh gosh, Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley playing Battle of the Swords, which was just a flat out embarrassment. I don't even know if I want to rehash that. They were just kind of playing sword fight like kids do, except with crutches. And I don't know how. I don't think there is a babyface in this program. There isn't, which is begging for Becky Lynch to come back. Which is why I think Rhea Ripley, I'll get it out, is going to retain at Money in the Bank to set up for a Becky Lynch Rhea Ripley match at SummerSlam. That's what I think, and I hope. As much as Rhea Ripley is another one that is just not doing it for me at all. At all. She feels like a wrestler, or she feels like she's playing a wrestler. She doesn't actually believe in like herself. It feels that way, at least on the camera. I may be wrong, maybe she does, but that's how I feel. AJ Styles lost to Riddle this past week with a schoolboy, and yeah, another distraction finish at the expense of the Viking Raiders, who were at ringside and cost AJ Styles this match. Again, no Randy Orton, and I think he'll be back maybe this Monday, or maybe not till the pay-per-view. I don't know. But Riddle, even without Randy, he's got the spirit of Randy in him somehow, and he's channeling Randy. Everything that Riddle's doing right now it's good stuff. It's a shining star on Monday Night Raw, one of the bright spots, and I got to say I enjoy it. Let's see. Oh, Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal. I know that a lot of people are down on Jinder. I explained on my Monday Night Raw review where I actually don't hate him as much as a lot of people do. I think he's got some good heat on him, like instantly. I'm not a fan of Veer and Shanky. I think that they could they could go, or at least be renamed. That I think would do them wonders. But it's clear that after Jinder Mahal, per the rules of WWE booking, when you steal someone's personal belongings, you are instantly in a program with them. So, going by that logic, Drew and Jinder are set to do battle at likely all the way to SummerSlam. Unless this is going to be resolved on TV, which I don't think it will, you're going to have Drew and Jinder strung out all the way to SummerSlam. That's, to me, what's going to happen. And you could have Jinder Mahal screw Drew McIntyre at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Just as Drew's about to grab the briefcase, Jinder Mahal is going to screw him out of it. There's going to be a lot of screwiness in that match. And I think you're going to have Jinder Mahal be the one to cost Drew that briefcase. And then Drew's going to be on a warpath with Jinder Mahal. That's how I look at it. And I'm somewhat intrigued in this program because it keeps Drew the hell out of the title picture. Jinder and Drew have a history, of course, with three-man band. and I hope they actually bring it up rather than bury it. And it's a different opponent for Drew. And it brings up a new heel that hasn't been in the limelight in quite a while. So, you know what? I'm interested in it. So, all right. The other thing, let's see, Alexa Bliss, she was in an 8-woman tag match. And so I don't know what the point of Alexa Bliss is right now. Or at least, here's the thing. I don't know what the end game is with Alexa Bliss. What is the end game? Is it to have her go darker? Have her bring back Lily? Have somebody find the antidote to bring her back to just normal Alexa Bliss? Have the Fiend come back and reunite? I mean, what is the end game with Alexa? We don't know. We don't know. So I know that a lot of us are down on Alexa Bliss as of late, and she's not my favorite character, but she has intriguing qualities and she's all in on it, as hokey as it sometimes can be. And they've toned a lot of that down and they've heard us loud and clear, but I still don't know what the end game is for her. I maybe they don't either. So, all right. Well, let's see if there's anything else that I feel like is worth mentioning. I think that pretty much does it, guys. Because if you want a full Monday Night Raw review, you can hit my Raw review up. It's in the feed several shows back. I mean, we pump out about 9 shows a week. But if you're interested in that, check it out. Again, guys, thank you so much for listening. And the What If is going on our free feed. So check it out. Starting this week, the very first episode did drop, and all subsequent weeks will be there as well. So if you are on the Patreon side of things, as a replacement in the Raw tier and higher, those that did sign up in those tiers to get the What If, yes, you'll still get the What If completely ad-free. You will now also get video that's exclusive to you, as well as being able to come on the show for a chat about wrestling anytime that you'd like in the month. So we'll be adding that in the coming days so that we keep things on the up and up. All right, everybody. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts if you love us, and do it even if you hate us. So I do really appreciate it, because it does help us in the ratings and the rankings and everything else. And thanks, guys. As always, I'll talk to you next time.